Okay, what have you been taught about fear as it relates to walking with the Lord, generally speaking? Yeah, you're not supposed to be afraid. It's bad. What else? Fear is the lack of faith, right? What are some verses that you've heard to prove that or proof text that? It doesn't prove it, it proof texts it. What? God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, all that. Yeah, beautiful, okay? That word fear there is not fear. The word is, God has not given us a spirit of cowardice, but of courage. It's a different word. To be a man of courage or a woman of courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. It does mean there's something that matters more to you than what you're afraid of, and you're going to do it anyway. That's not at all about fear. That's about being a man or woman of courage and passion and willingness to do things that are scary, which is courage. It's not about fear. It's translated fear, but it's not the Greek word in fear. It's cowardice. God has not given us a spirit of cowardice. Okay, what's another verse? Perfect love casts out fear. 1 John chapter 4. Okay, context is king. That means the context determines the meaning. In 1 John chapter 4, I love this one. In 1 John chapter 4, John's talking. He says, God is love. It's who God is. And if you know this God who's love, you'll have the love of God in you. And the more you know this God who's love, the more love of his will be inside you. And he goes, you're going to know you're his because you're going to love because God is love and love is in you and God is in you. And he's kind of going around and around like that. And then he says this, because all that's true and you're knowing this God who's love and you have the love of God in you and you know he's in you because you know love is in you, he says, you do not have to be afraid. You go look it up in 1 John 4. You don't have to be afraid about the day of judgment that this God who you know and who knows you is going to put you away and somehow send you to hell. And he says, perfect love casts out fear. Fear of what? Fear of cancer, fear of getting hit by a car, fear of failing a class. What kind of fear is he talking about in 1 John 4? Fear of eternal judgment. And he says, you don't have to be afraid of that. And my love for you, the more you know I love you and my love is in you, you're not going to be afraid of your judgment day. That's what he's talking about there. Whole different kind of fear. What's another one? We use the Bible all the time to talk us out of our human need of God. There's 365 verses in the Bible that say, fear not, one for every day of the year, so you never have to be afraid. You look up most of them, not all, but most of them are going to sound like this. Fear not because I'm with you. Fear not because I won't forsake you. Fear not because I'm your righteous right hand. Fear not because I will uphold you. They're all about relationship. Chip Dowd, I've heard him say this. Kids aren't afraid of the dark. They're afraid of being alone in the dark. Go to Psalm 23. Who's the shepherd in Psalm 23? The Lord. Who's the sheep in Psalm 23? We are. And how does that psalm start? What kind of places the shepherd got the sheep? They're lying down by green pastures, restoring my soul. Like you're going, wow, this is awesome. I'm a sheep and he's the shepherd and he's taking me all these great places. And then what happens in the same psalm? By the way, where he's the shepherd and you're the sheep, same psalm, he's led you to these green pastures, he's restoring your soul. Now where are you? Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. Now you may have gone in there and he may have come in there after you, but hang with me on this. There's a good possibility the shepherd who led you to those other places may have led you into that valley. And it may be his mercy that you're there. Genesis 3. He says, I will fear no evil, not because the valley of shadow of death is not a scary place. I fear no evil because of what? Thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou, shepherd, dost prepare a table before me in the presence of who? My enemies. People that want to harm me. Who put me at the table? Who put the enemies at the table? And yet it says that you bless me at this table with these people that want to harm me. And the only reason I can be there is because you're with me. If one of my kids was in here, let's just take one of my boys. Let's take my 14-year-old and let's make him a little bit younger. Let's make him like 6. And let's put him right there. And let's say this room starts to shake like an earthquake and walls start to come down and stuff's starting to fall. What's he feeling? What's he feeling? Fear. Okay, what's he going to do when he knows how afraid he is? Where's he going to run? Why to me? I'm the farthest from the door. And I'm the oldest guy in here. He needs to go to you. He's going to run to me. Now, why is he going to run to me? Why is he going to run to me? Why is he going to run to me? Because he knows something about me. What does he know? Yeah. See, I started that whole equation by making sure he knew first that I was the dad that loves him. By the way, that son's adopted as well, so he's had to learn I love him because he came into this world believing he was rejected and rejectable. He's African American, which means it was very early on he knew he wasn't mine, like physically. He's looking around going, "You're not my dad." And it's been harder for him, and I've got another African American son, it's been harder for those two boys than for my other 4 kids. Because their first thoughts about themselves was, I'm not wanted. I don't belong and matter to anybody. And they have had the hardest of my 6 believing that they belong and matter to me. Because they were born believing they're not. And limbically, they struggled. The minute they were taken from their birth mom, they were in survival mode. They weren't thinking about it, but their limbic system was saying, where's my mom? It's physiological. It's limbic. And so they've struggled in different ways. Them other kids even haven't. My son, even that son, who's not quite sure sometimes whether he belongs and matters to me, and it's not because I don't love him, it's because he's just not sure, that boy will come find me. Now, I don't want, as his dad, I don't want my son sitting over there going, "Look at me, Daddy, I'm not afraid. I really am trusting in you right now. See, I'm sitting over here. I'm not have to go anywhere." What do I want my son to do in that case when he's afraid? As his dad, what do I want him to do? Come running to me. And what's going to cause him to run to me? Fear. You see, fear is not the absence of faith. Fear is the human recognition that I live in a place that can harm me, and I better go find a God who will care for me. See, fear is not the absence of faith. Fear is the human confession that leads to faith. And I'll go find a God that I can put my faith in who's faithful. So the gift of fear is faith in wisdom. Wisdom is he's a trustworthy God who's been there when I've run to him. Fear is not the absence of faith. Fear leads me to reach in faith. Do you see that? Do you see that? This is huge.